Okay, so you want to make every minute count, huh? Ditch that whole always busy, never getting anywhere thing and focus on work that actually lights you up.
You weren't kidding about sending us a ton of material. Articles, research, personal stories, you name it.
It's like a productivity avalanche. But hey, we dug in, and trust me, there's some gold in here.
What's interesting is how much of it leads to the same place. You've got intense time tracking
Yeah.
next to like finding your calling in life. It's kind of wild.
Right. It's not just about squeezing in more tasks. It's about doing more of the stuff that actually matters, making sure you're on the right track altogether. Speaking of, you've got a bunch of stuff on impactful work. How'd they define that?
One source had this great gardening comparison.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Think about it. You wouldn't just plant anything anywhere in your garden.
Right. Right. You've got a plan.
Exactly. Veggies or flowers, you choose what works. Impactful work, same deal. It's about deciding where you're going to put your time and energy,
Mm-hmm.
making those choices strategically.
Love it. But actually figuring out what those choices should be, that's the tricky part, isn't it?
It's definitely where the rubber meets the road. One of the sources called it a busy work audit, which sounds kind of intense.
Yeah, a little bit.
But basically, you track everything, and I mean everything you do for a set time.
Even like going in the bathroom, grabbing another coffee,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yep. Sounds a little crazy, but honestly, it can be a huge eye-opener.
No kidding. I actually tried this after reading that same source, and whoa, talk about a wake-up call. You really see where your time goes, even those little things you don't even think about.
It's about getting real with yourself, right? And being brutally honest about how long stuff actually takes. We're kind of notorious for underestimating that, especially those little things that actually eat up a lot of time.
So how do we go from tracking everything to actually making a change?
Well, that's where the real work comes in. You've got to analyze each task. Ask yourself the hard questions. Is this actually important? Is it something only I can do? Or could someone else do it even better? Or could I, automate it somehow?
There's that delegation word again, and it's not just for managers, right? We can all benefit from this.
Absolutely. Figuring out what you can hand off, both at work and in your personal life, that's huge. Imagine you free up all this time and mental energy to focus on the stuff that only you can do, the high-impact things you're really good at.
It's about working smarter, not harder. I like it. So delegation's definitely on my to-do list to get better at. But it's exciting to think what we could do with all that extra time and energy, if we actually handed off those smaller tasks. And speaking of making the most of our time, you highlighted this flow state thing that pops up a lot in the research. What's that all about?
It's super interesting. So many of those productivity tips we think about, they kind of boil down to getting you into that flow state. You know that feeling, right? When you're just in the zone, work feels easy and time just flies by.
Totally. It's like you blink and you've suddenly made a ton of progress without even realizing it. So how do we get there? Is it just about having a clear to-do list and no distractions, or is there something more to it?
Well, one of the things you said actually talked about using the Pomodoro Technique to kind of hack your way into flow. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, it's where you break your work into chunks, usually 25 minutes or so, with little breaks in between, right?
Hmm.
I've always thought it sounded kind of cool, but I'll admit I haven't actually tried it out myself.
It sounds pretty basic, but it really works. Having that timer going, it kind of forces you to focus on one thing at a time and ignore everything else. It's surprising what you can get done when you only have a short window. Plus, those breaks help keep you from getting burned out.
So you're working with your brain's natural rhythm instead of fighting against it, because pushing yourself too hard for too long, that's when you get nowhere, right?
Totally. And when you've got that focus work happening, plus you know your tasks actually line up with what you care about, that's when the flow really kicks in.
Which brings us to another interesting idea you pulled out, the goodness pyramid. I have to admit, it seemed a little out there at first. What's a pyramid got to do with productivity?
It's not about being perfect or anything. It's more about self-awareness.
Mhm.
One source described it as a way to map out your values, literally draw them out. The most basic stuff goes at the bottom, and then you build up to the more, I don't know, complex stuff at the top.
Okay, so what kind of things are we talking about here?
Think about it. At the bottom, you've got your survival needs, right? Food, shelter, and, let's be real, Wi-Fi.
Okay, yeah, those are definitely essential.
Then as you go up the pyramid, each level's about things that are even more important to you. Security, love, belonging, being respected, having a purpose. All the way up to self-actualization, becoming your best self.
So if we each made our own goodness pyramid right now, how would we connect that back to our work, to our everyday lives?
I'd ask you to look at your job right now. Does it match up with those top values you put on your pyramid? Does it let you be who you really are deep down? It can be huge for finding work that truly feels right, even if it means switching careers or taking a totally different path. You send over a bunch of stories about people doing exactly that, people finding more fulfilling work because they finally took the time to figure out what they really value.
That's so true. And we see it all the time, right? People afraid to make a change, even when they're miserable. Like they're scared to start over and take a chance.
It's totally normal to feel that way. But there was this one source that said that the average person has like 12 jobs in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Crazy,
Like
right?
12. Well,
So making a change is actually pretty normal. It's almost expected. And sometimes that change, even if it's scary, that's what helps you reach your full potential.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about finding our flow, we've talked about aligning our work with our values, but there's one more big idea we need to dig into, and this one really stuck with me. The Mindshare Economy. What's that all about? So it's like we've gone from tidying up our to-do list to like planting a whole new garden. But what is this Mindshare Economy thing? Why does it matter?
It's kind of deep, right? We've been talking about the practical stuff, managing time, getting rid of tasks, finding work that matches who you are. But this mindshare thing, it's bigger. It's like, yeah, what you know matters, but it's also about WHO, you know, and how much value you bring to those relationships.
So it's like you're building your own personal brand almost, like becoming someone known for their expertise, someone people trust.
Exactly. Think about the people you look up to in your field, the ones who are always killing it. What is it about them that makes their mind share so appealing?
Hmm. Good question. I guess it's like they always see what's coming next. The innovators, they don't just follow the trends, they're out there making the trends.
Totally. And it's not just about having ideas, it's about sharing them. One study you sent said people with great networks are like 3 times more likely to get picked for leadership roles.
Mhm.
It's not just WHO, but how you connect with those people, what you bring to the table.
So how do you actually build that kind of mind share? It's not like it happens overnight, right?
Yeah. Definitely not a quick fix. It's about showing up consistently, sharing what you know, making real connections. Maybe you start writing about your work online, or you go to those industry events and really contribute to the conversation.
It could be as simple as introducing two people who you know could help each other out.
Exactly. You become that person who connects the dots, who always brings something valuable to the table.
The one everyone wants to talk to.
Exactly. And it's not about bragging. It's about genuinely making your field better, having a positive impact.
Man, this has been amazing. We've gone from productivity hacks to like deep dives on personal values to this whole mind share thing. It's a lot.
It's definitely a lot to think about. Remember that goodness pyramid we talked about? One of the things you sent said to use that to help figure out your priorities with all this. When you know your values, it's like a filter for how you spend your time, A and D, who you spend it with.
So if like creativity is at the top of my pyramid, I'm not just picking tasks that let me be creative, I'm also finding other creative people to connect with.
Exactly. And hey, maybe now's the time you finally try that Pomodoro thing. See if it helps you get in that flow and power through your creative work. Small steps done consistently make a big difference.
It's about making choices on purpose, ones that match who we are and what we're trying to achieve, right? Both in our careers and our lives.
Nailed it. You got this. Just remember, be patient, keep learning, keep growing, and never underestimate how powerful a sharp mind can be when you put in the effort to cultivate it.